Hey everyone, this is Andrew from the Private Investigator Advice Podcast. This video is a podcast. It's a lot of me sitting and talking into the camera. So if that's not a good fit for you, no problem. Catch me on one of my other videos. Otherwise, this one is going to be about 11 time-tested surveillance tips for private investigators, new private investigators in particular. I wrote about this about a year ago, and so hopefully you get some good tips from this. Yeah, check it out. If not, if this isn't a good fit, just catch me on the next video. Thanks, guys. Hey, everyone. This is Andrew from the Private Investigator Advice Podcast. I'm the owner of Fortified Investigative Services out here in Washington, and also the website piadvice.net. You can find more about me and the videos and the podcast on that website, or you can go to iTunes and all the kind of good stuff to see that stuff. This is episode number 70. The topic today is 11 time-tested surveillance tips for new investigators. In particular, I wrote about this for somebody who had asked me a question. She was new, and I really tailored this article, which we'll be talking about today, for her. I just want to start off, by saying, just in general, and I'm sure I've talked about this before, being a new investigator and doing surveillance, it's very tough. It's very stressful. It's mentally taxing. It's financially tough sometimes, especially when you're like losing people and you're getting caught by people you're watching. When you have to cut your day short, it's very stressful. And then you, have to kind of dwell about that in your brain about, what you did wrong or what happened, what was wrong. Anyway, so I kind of want to discuss that. But without all that saying, like everything I just mentioned, like the stressfulness and the kind of maybe getting down on yourself a little bit. That's all completely natural. You're supposed to do that, and you will eventually learn from that after you kind of replay it in your head. I used to, whenever I would mess up, or even on good days, like, when I first started, I would still replay the entire surveillance in my head. I don't do that anymore. I don't have the brain capacity to think about every little thing anymore. Like if I did something wrong, I'll go back and go, okay, I think I know where this went wrong. And it could have, I think, could I have done anything different? No, probably. Okay. Whatever. I try to figure it out. Anyway, so I want to get into the question that I answered, and then we'll get into some tips. Feel free. I'll put a link in the podcast notes if you're listening to it. To the actual article. I'll put a link in the video, and I'm sure you'll see this on Facebook as well. So, okay. The question is from Alyssa, and she said, "Hi there, I'm a new private investigator. It's my second week, and I've been on my own for 1 week. I really want to excel at this job, and it is very challenging. Every time my subject leaves their house, they turn the corner and boom, gone. I have lost 3 out of my 6 subjects so far, and I am getting incredibly frustrated. I know I'm new, and getting good will take time. My question is, how often do new private investigators lose their subjects when they first start? Is this common? Or am I as terrible as I think I am? How can I avoid this? And how long did it take you to start feeling comfortable and confident with your abilities?" I do applaud Alyssa for reaching out for help. I don't know her complete situation, of course. I don't know what kind of manager she has. I don't really know what kind of training she has. But just the fact that she's looking for more answers, more help, I totally applaud that. So, but I'm just going to say for anybody new and anybody old, surveillance is totally an art form, in my opinion. So many different skills are involved, and it can be very difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down her question, and I'm going to try to answer that the best I can. Kind of going off what I've already written just to help me stay on track. Also, one of the things that I want to mention to anybody who's listening is that it's okay to get down on yourself when you screw up. it's a natural thing, and it should help you get better because you want to see what you did wrong, right? So let me just break this down. Question number one: how often do new private investigators lose their subjects when they first start? Is this common, or am I as terrible as I think? So every day, here's my answer to that. Every day you should be looking, again, to correct your mistakes. When I started, I was kind of fortunate. I had managers in the office that I would call and ask questions for. I had someone in the field that I could call upon and bounce things off of and, ask questions on. So I was always, like, even when I was learning from my actual surveillance, I was actually learning from these other investigators as well. And these different people, these other investigators, these managers, could tell me what worked for them, and I could see what worked for them, and I could see what didn't work for them. So with that being said, you're not terrible. And even though I know you feel that way because your case didn't go like you thought it should be, Alyssa, it's completely normal. Not every surveillance is going to go to plan. Like, more times than not, they don't. When they do, it's glorious, right? You get your video and you get your 8 hours and everything's, hunky dory. But it's those bad days where, you didn't follow them all the way or you didn't finish the day that it kind of can get to you. But just understand that there's so many outside elements that are not in your control, and you can only control certain things within your environment, like what you do. And so what I always tell everybody is minimize your mistakes. So then the only other interference is like the outside things, right? Just minimize what you do wrong, and it'll make your surveillances much better in the future. So shake it off. If you're having a hard time right now, anybody listening to this, just shake it off. Just keep listening. Here we go. So number 2, the question part of the breaking down her question. Every time my subject leaves their house, they turn the corner and boom, they're gone. I've lost 3 out of my 6 subjects so far, getting incredibly frustrated. How can I avoid losing the subject that I'm conducting surveillance on? One of the things that I told her in this article was that, you've only been doing it for 2 weeks and you're going to lose a bajillion, well, hopefully not a bajillion. That's a lot of people. You're going to lose a lot of people in your life. You're going to lose a lot of people in your career. That's going to happen. You can't get away from that. And you're going to get burned, and that's going to happen. And you can't get away from that either. It's going to happen. And it's going to keep happening your entire career. So it's never going to end. You just want to minimize the burns, when people find out, you're watching them, and do your best to minimize losing people. Or if you're going to lose people, try not to have it at the beginning of the day, have it at the end of the day, when you're, 6 or 7 hours into it. That way you can look for them a little bit. And even if you don't find them, you're darn near, at the end of your day. So what I did was, since her main problem was kind of like following people from their home, I've got 8 tips here to kind of help anybody listening to this, Alyssa, that I had actually already answered this question for, help you guys manage that. Because I think that's the most important part on surveillance is getting them away from their home. So, all right. One of my first things I always talk about is when you set up on your surveillance. My number one tip here not in ranking, but just the first one. The first one should be park at least 5 houses away. If being 5 houses away takes your view away from the residence, I'm okay with that. Obviously, you would have already known what's there. You know what the house looks like or whatever, and what cars are there. But yeah, if you can't clearly see the home, I'm okay with that. Consequently, when I first started in this industry, I worked for a company that was very aggressive, and it was all about having a view. And I am not a proponent of that all the time. Like, yeah, ideally in ideal situations, you want to have a view, but it's just not always going to happen all the time. So, 5 houses away. And the reason for that real quickly is, so when your subject comes out of their house, 5 houses away is a little bit too farther down. He likely doesn't know people that far away, his neighbors that far away. And if anything happens, like cop comes, neighbor comes to their house or comes to your car, they won't see it. And that's one of the things you want to pay attention to. You don't want them to see any activity with your car or with neighbors and police. So, as long as you can see vehicles leaving, you're in good shape to be there 5 houses away or more. When I get to a surveillance, this is number 2 here. When I get to a surveillance, I like to know the routes of departure. So, depending on what the area is like and, residential area, whatever, routes of departure, which way will the person likely leave, right? Which road do they take? They have a specific pattern. Everybody has kind of a pattern. They usually go certain ways every time. And so try to figure that out. One of the main ways you can do it is looking at Google Maps prior to your surveillance, kind of just getting the aerial view, kind of, I'll even go to Street View to see who's parking. If there's pictures of, cars on the street, then, okay, people park on the street. That's common. So, anyways, that's what I usually do to start it off. What else? Okay, yeah. So I'm losing my train of thought here. So so you find out the routes of departure. If anything happens, you can always pull a little bit farther back. And try to follow them from there. Real quick, if you don't really know which way's the route, I try to watch other vehicles, see which way they leave, like neighbors and stuff. And if you see them all going in one direction, then that's probably the main route of departure, the main way everybody goes. So, all right. Number 3, I would recommend sitting in the front seat on your surveillance when you're trying to follow people from their home. This way you can be ready to go. You can turn on the car and just go when it's time to go to follow your person. Okay. I used to be a backseat guy. I can do both. Really kind of depends on the situation, but more times than not, I like to be in the front seat. It doesn't always apply, but it'll help you, if you're not doing that, get on the move faster. Number 4. So your surveillance position is very important. I don't, me personally, I'm not, I don't like to be that close to the residents. I feel like there's more problems. The closer I am, the further I got to follow somebody out of a neighborhood. So if I can figure out where, which way they come out, which way they go, then, sometimes I like to just hang back. So what I do is I personally, drive by the residence in the morning. I'll videotape it, try to get plate numbers of the vehicles and just any identifying things on the cars, and then I'll pull back. And I don't spend a great deal of time there. I don't want to be suspicious anyway, but that's just kind of how I do it. I feel like I'm more successful when I'm not overly aggressive on a surveillance. Number 5, don't get fancy. You likely were taught to have buffer vehicles in between your vehicle and the subject. When you're in town, I don't use them. If you're burned, if you're caught, then you're caught. So none of these buffers are going to do anything. And you're going to lose them if you have other people in between you guys. And I'm not saying ride their bumper, but don't let other people get in between if you don't have to. I usually use buffers for like rural areas and freeways where I know that I could, catch up to them very quickly if need be. But I also use, for the freeway wise, for the rural roads, I just don't want them seeing my car the whole time on these long stretch of rural roads. So I'll allow the vehicles to get in between us if I can. So yeah, don't get fancy, and don't get fancy with your surveillance techniques. Just follow the person and just get them to their first location. Number 7. Learn from your mistakes. If you're having a hard time following your subject from the residence, maybe you're waiting for them to go down the street and make the turn. Maybe you sit further back and you're close to that intersection where they make their turn, so you can get on them faster. You got to evaluate what you're doing wrong, and you got to make adjustments to that. Number 8. one of the biggest obstacles, I think, in surveillance is your brain. Your brain can sometimes play tricks on you, make you think you're burned. You start to get paranoid, you get anxiety because of neighborhoods. Maybe the neighborhoods are, there's people looking at your car, your anxiety builds up, and then you're like, oh, I can't be here anymore, and you got to move, and then your anxiety, goes down. Or maybe they've, done one U-turn. You're like, oh, that's it, I'm burned. And really they're just lost and they don't know where they're going. And I could talk more about that another time, but it's just sometimes, and I'm the reason I know about this so well, because I've done it. I'm the master at sabotaging myself, and it's about controlling that sabotage mentality when you're on a surveillance to help you to build out your days and get video and do better. So the last question, that was all for the setup thing. Also bonus answer. I don't know if I said this already. Get the person to their first location. Once you do that, everything should be a breeze. You get them to their first location, and maybe they go to the store, and then from there, if they haven't caught on to you by then you should be fine. Like, there's no way they should even know you're there. You'd have to do a lot of stuff to mess things up from that point on. Okay. All right. So the last one is how long did it start making before you started feeling comfortable and confident with your abilities? So generally speaking, it took me about a year. I've always to feel like confident to do the job. I didn't need anybody's help. I felt like a competent investigator. With that being said, 13 years later, I feel like I'm 100 times better than I was after my first year. If that makes sense. You're always getting better. You're always trying to improve. You don't ever get kind of like, oh, well, I've got this all figured out. No, because you probably don't. So always trying to learn. Be humble. Just try to learn from other people. I still learn from other people. If I know that it's going to help me build out my days better or do something better, then I take it, put it in my pocket, and that's my tool to use now. So I still remember the first day that I got about 2 minutes before I got to wrap this up. I remember the first day that I told my boss I didn't need his help anymore. I basically would call my boss every day for the smallest things. Hey, what should I do? It's just like I wanted permission to sit or him tell me what to do. And one day I didn't call him, and he called me. He says, I haven't heard from you. I said, yeah, because I can't call you for everything, man. I got to figure this out, and I got this. And that was like my first moment of me, like kind of like taking the training wheels off and really feeling like I was my own investigator. I could do all the things, but at that moment was when I really felt, me personally, I mean, everybody's going to be different, but that's when I felt, okay. So, listen, your confidence is going to waver. It's going to waver from time to time, no matter how many years you've been doing it. You're going to have your slumps where you just can't follow somebody and they just keep getting away from you. And you're going to have your awesome times where, no one can get away from you. You're going to have your days, your times where you can't get any video. And there's going to be times when you have too much video, which is never a bad thing. These are the kind of ups and downs that a surveillance investigator has. It's going to happen. And so you just kind of have to weather them. And the longer you do it, the more you understand that what happens. Like, I mean, you kind of get it after a while, like, oh man, I'm in a slump, and did I send, you're self-aware, you analyze what you did, and that's just kind of part of the gig. So if anybody has any questions or comments, be sure to comment maybe in the article. I'm going to share it on Facebook. Share this with your friends if this helped you or if you feel like it's good advice. With that being said, I appreciate your time, guys. Since we're at the end of the podcast, if you guys want to hear something in particular, and I know about it and I can do it, I'll share it. I'm going to be putting out some more podcasts so we can kind of get the podcasting rolling again. I forgot to. Right now I'm going to do a sponsor. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is the place to go for audiobooks. Audible is giving away one free book for you to try out their service. You can go to audibletrial.com/PIA. That's audibletrial.com/PIA. Get an audiobook for free and see if you even are interested in it. I used to listen to audiobooks all the time on surveillance. I definitely would encourage it. So there's something to do on your drive or on your downtime. Again, take a look at it. No obligation. Keep the book even if you don't want to stay with Audible. Again, it's audibletrial.com/PIA. Thanks, guys. Okay, guys. Thank you for your time. And I will talk to you again soon. Later.